G'day everyone, welcome to the Big Footy Eagles podcast for another week. It's been a tough week for the West Coast Eagles and I feel like we're saying that a lot lately, but coming up on the show, we've got a nice thing to talk about at least. We're going to talk about Nic Naitanui's 200th game and we'll hopefully spend a lot of time on that and not acknowledge the bullshit that's going on at the club. No, of course, we're going to have to talk about some stuff that's going on at the club. Gentlemen, I have pulled you away from Fremantle versus Geelong. It's also not a very entertaining match, but Migs, at least there's some entertaining value being played at Optus Stadium this week because it was been a tough week for the Eagles, as I've said. I think we were all there sitting in the rain as well. But Migs, you're on the show. Thank you for putting up with the Eagles for another few days and actually showing up to talk about them. Tough one this week.
Yeah, I'm going to try and start off positive and a couple of positives. We've now beaten twice as many top 8 sides as we had this time last week because Freo got it up into the 8. And also in about 7 minutes' time, we're going to be back up into 7th. So, yeah.
The boys are climbing the ladder. They're climbing the ladder without even playing, which is good because Keys at the moment, when they play, good things tend not to happen. But again, thank you for jumping on the show and bothering. You've said Fold Keys is your name. We've got Miguel Stuffed Chairs, and I'm Eagles Badger 35. Keys, tough week, mate.
Yeah, I mean, I'd laugh at Fremantle, but we probably don't really have a right to laugh at anybody at the moment after getting beat up at home by 8-8. So, yeah, kind of shit week and a really bad 3-week run, and probably the baddest 3 weeks as we've had since Simpson took over.
No good at all. Now, gents, we can dive in and talk about it if we actually want to acknowledge what's going on at the club. I mean, we can sit and watch the end of Freo. Can I get a score check? Where are they at the moment? I've turned it off.
Still 99, 99 to 29, 70 points.
Boy, that's a shame. That's a pity. Look, yeah, I reckon we might as well get into it. But before we do, guys, thank you for the people who are in the comments. We've got a lot of people, obviously, watching. Oh, we got a score update there in the comments. Appreciate that. Look, tag your mates, share the show. Eagles are a bit of a shit show at the moment. Hopefully this show isn't too shit. And you can, have your say. Tell us what's wrong. Tell us how you'd fix the club. Say thanks to Nic Nat as well when we get around to that segment. We've got heroes and villains coming up later on as well. And we will preview our game against, who do we even play this week? Adelaide, I think. I think Summer thought we were playing Geelong, but we're playing somebody. We'll circle around to it at the end. But yeah, look, tag your friends. Share this show around. If you're still listening to the audio version of the pod, fantastic. Thank you very much for that. Stick with it. If you want to try the live stream as well, though, we're here every Thursday, 8:30. Gents, let's talk about the West Coast Eagles. They played the 18th place North Melbourne, and from memory, it went pretty poorly. West Coast Eagles, 8 goals, 12-60, were defeated by North Melbourne, 10 goals, 10-70. Migs, you're not going to win too many games kicking just the 60 points. They were very inaccurate to start. 8 goals, 12 actually is okay at the end of the day because they got on a bit of a scoring run. Shit start, shit middle. Little bit of hope at the end that they were at least going to pull out a game and win, take the 4 points, take the win. In the end, they couldn't even do that. But no matter how that game finished up, it was not an inspiring effort. So take us through your thoughts, West Coast, North Melbourne.
Yeah, they teased us a bit in that last quarter, having suddenly just decided how to kick goals. Yeah, I think it was 3-12 at three-quarter time. And our forward line has really been propping us up this season. And in the last 3 weeks, it's gone to shit like the other lines. And, yeah, that's where we've ended up. Not a lot to like at all about that game. We identified that we needed to win the clearances, and we did that, but they weren't good wins, and they were turned over straight away. Probably the difference in the clearances was the amount of times that Naitanui took it out of the ruck and threw it on his boot, and most of those got turned over. I think he went at about 30% disposal efficiency. So, and
usually
then
that's
from
good,
there.
Though. And on a night like that, we'll talk about the weather, of course. I didn't mind the concept, but Jesus, they just weren't working. Whether that's him to stop doing it, whether it's the forwards to play it differently, it just was not coming off.
They didn't seem to be playing in front as much as you'd think they would be in those conditions. And then we just got outworked, out-hustled. The buzz stat post clearance contested possessions, ground ball gets, whatever you want to call it. We got smashed in that. So, yeah, if it wasn't a clearance, if it was a contested ball, we were losing it. We were getting outworked. We weren't running. You look on the tracker, we'd run something like 4Ks less than North's players. You could just see it at the ground. There wasn't any spread. There wasn't a lot of effort to get the ball back when North did turn it over, especially in the second half. We seemed to, apart from that 10-minute period in the fourth quarter, we seemed to just, I don't know, let them waltz through the corridor. 48 tackles for the game, which is a terrible number in a contested game like that, and a game where your opponents have had more possessions than you. So just apart from Nic Nat probably winning the hitouts and the clearances, not a lot to take away at all. And if we had managed to snag a win, that would have been absolute thievery. Yeah, good comment there by Andrew. Yeah,
Andrew, any credits in the bank used up in the podcast? G'day, Andrew. Nice to have you on the show.
Don't know how many credits we've got.
Well, more than the boys do at the moment. Keys.
Yeah. Well, no, they've got fucking unlimited credits in the bank, it seems.
True enough. Yeah, we'll get to the changes, which seem to be 2 enforced changes and none after an insipid 3 weeks, potentially the worst 3 weeks in certainly Simpson's tenure, but potentially Eagles' history, with the expectations and the list we got. Keys, I'll throw to you in just a moment, but let me have a look at the 3-word reviews here. We're ready for... There's a bit of a theme on this one. This is all from Twitter. Another insipid display, says Burjo. Daniel says we're done here. Al said they aren't interested. G'day, Pants. Big Papa Pants. Former Eagles podcaster Pants. Kyle says team is cooked. JS says insipid, inept, inside the 8. Kind of like that. Not 3 words, but that's all right. We'll pay that one. I am speechless. We've got draft chat already. We've got C-bombs on loop from Keys, and that's a good enough time to bring in the great man. Keys, you actually got to the game on the weekend. I think on Monday. We all did.
Yep.
Us and 30,000 of our best mates. We got rained on for the privilege, and we saw an absolutely shitty game.
Yeah, it wasn't great. I thought, for the most part, the first quarter, it was... we were going okay. I think it was 17-7 inside 50s. The only thing in the first quarter was our finishing was shit. And I guess you're in for a bad night when Kennedy kicks into the man on the mark from 15 metres out.
Yeah.
And I think, probably most of the things that I wanted to see in the first quarter were there. The intent was good. We were winning the ball. We controlled the territory. But the scoreboard, compared to what we usually do, we're inaccurate. We butchered a few chances that we otherwise might have been able to take advantage of. And then the game started to turn in the second quarter, I think, because we got frustrated. North started getting under our skin, and we turned the ball over with some stupid fucking dumbass free kicks and some ill discipline. And I think by half time, I think North sort of thought we're close enough when we got them rattled. And then our guys dropped their bundle in the third quarter. And I think it was, I sort of, in the third quarter, it seemed to me, every time whatever area the ball was in, doesn't matter, it was midfield, our back line, our forward line, North Melbourne always had the outnumber. And that's a clear sign that players aren't working hard enough. And that's what, probably pissed me off as much as anything, is the guys just weren't working, they'd given up, and North sort of, rolled on over the top of us. Number 7, the umpire number 7 I'm talking about, mate, if I had a rusty spike, it would piece through his fucking head. I reckon by my count, it was something like 10 free kicks to 1 in that third quarter, and I'm pretty sure it was 3 deliberates.
The deliberate was bad, especially on a night like that. Some of the ones they were calling, they weren't.
I reckon
you had the Eagles crowd appealing at one point for a deliberate on the Eagles. That's how farcical it was getting.
Yeah. That didn't lose us the game, but it certainly didn't help us. And I thought in the last quarter, we got on a pretty good roll. The crowd were up. We got out to not quite 2 goals. I think it was 1.5, 10 points or something like that. And you sort of thought, okay, it hasn't been a great night, but at least we're going to get away with the win. And I reckon the players thought that too, and they stopped. North got another goal, and then again they came and they were the ones that wanted it more. And I think that's out of all of this this season, that's been the most disappointing is in games where it's been up for grabs in the last quarter. Our guy, apart from the game against Richmond, our guys have been out-wanted by the opposition. And you can go through all those games. You can go through St Kilda, GWS, Essendon.
Both Dogs games.
Because
the Dogs game, the second one was a blowout, but it was in the balance. Oscar Allen was having a shot to make it, a 12, 14-point game, something like that, and then it really got out of control.
When they really needed it, when you really needed the players to step up, they just didn't. And I think what's particularly disappointing is you want your leaders to step up, and Naitanui aside, no one did.
Mm-hmm.
Naitanui, I mean, he was fighting a lone hand, and I reckon as much as Mig touched on Nat taking the ball out of the ruck, as much as he gave up on his mids and just said, "Fuck, you're not going to get it. I might as well just take it and hoik it." It didn't work out.
Full time was 133-31 apparently in the Dockers
No, it
game.
wasn't. No, I think Oker's having the interview there.
Oker's
maybe Oker's playing silly buggers.
Drugs.
That's a shame.
100-31.
Oh, that's not funny. They didn't win by 100. Oh well. Yeah.
So it's just the guys and there's some efforts that Cripps sort of with that little tummy tap on Thomas was just completely unnecessary. I think Ryan gave a free kick away in the goal square when Langdon was
having a shot.
Langdon wasn't going to make the distance because he was 35 metres out.
Because he's 12 metres out, yeah.
But at least he was going to be able to put it to the goal square. So Ryan's turned that around. I reckon there was at least one or two other free kicks where decisions got reversed.
Darling gave one away, slung a guy down.
Yeah.
Like soft, but the signs that they were under our skin and we weren't handling it well.
Yeah, and it's just, I don't know. We're just really poor. And I think, looking at Simpson at his press conference and his Ask Semmo segment that he does, he looks like a guy who doesn't quite know what's going wrong. He doesn't have the answers. Not that I blame him because I don't quite know what the go is, but there's something's rotten in the state of Denmark, and I can't put my finger on it.
So Kim has asked a good question in here, which I think we might circle back to a little bit later, but she said, what do you guys think of the relationship with the players, with each other? Maybe they're not gelling as well. Do you think there's something going on off field? Of course, Migs, we had that incident with Yo and Gov getting stuck into each other after McGovern dropped off Goldstein. It led to a goal, led to a 50, all sorts of stuff. So we'll talk about the behind-the-scenes stuff perhaps a little bit later, or at least our perception of it from the outside. But structurally, I've always been a big backer of Semmo. I still am, in that I think he's a good coach, and I think, he's by all reports got a contract extension. I've got no issue. I'm not saying sack the guy or anything like that. But sitting there watching it on Monday, I keep saying the weekend, on Monday night at 5:40 p.m, if you don't mind, he was so reluctant to man up the North Melbourne extra that they had out the back, which Keys touched on. The second that he did, and it's correlation, causation, all this sort of stuff. Maybe it's just me wanting him to do something and then he does it, and so I'm attributing it all to that. But we finally stopped letting him have a spare. We finally put Ryan in the goal square on a wet night. It gave you an outlet. It gave you something to kick to, because prior to that, every time they'd get to the wing, it would break down because Darling would take a mark, or free kick, someone would get a free kick. We get the ball. There was one where Archie did an amazing bit of play, dove on it, knocked it back to Langdon. And Langdon standing there at the tip of the centre square, that is perfect. We should be hitting somebody on the chest. But no, because the 50 is empty, he has to come out to the wing. We got to kick it to the goal square and hope we get a contested mark. The game plan is too reliant on a contested mark, slowing it down, letting everybody filter forward because they press so high, they got to get all the way back.
Yeah.
And on a night like that, Miggs, you're not going to get the contested mark. So it wasn't until we actually gave the guy something to kick to in the square that we got a bit of a run on. Like, that, for me, was not a nail in the coffin, but that's a light bulb moment for me, I think, where I love the kick mark game style. I genuinely do. I'm one of its biggest backers, and I know that. But for me, watching that, I was thinking, I mean, why are you so stubborn with this, Semmo? He knew what the answer was because he made the change. So, Miggs, why does it take so long? Why are they so reluctant to switch away from plan A?
Yeah, I wish I knew, because I'm surprised we had a plan B at all. We don't see it very often. But, yeah, we are way too stubborn at using that kick mark game style, even on nights that conditions that don't suit it. And we seem to have had a lot of wet games this year, and we're not playing well in them.
That's such a non-starter of it. I'm not knocking you on that, because it's a very fair comment. But who are we if we have to play in pristine conditions and all of this business? Where's the alternative? It's not always going to be on a platter for you.
Yeah, we don't know. The players look like they had no idea a lot of the time. Like, they weren't sure what to do. They're just totally bereft of confidence at the moment. You could see the difference in the game styles from sitting up in the stands, that the Kangaroos were moving the ball on quickly and they were using the corridor, and we were stopping and humming and hawing and going back and around and then kicking up on the wing to a contest. There's just they don't seem to have any idea what to do to get out of this slump. Nothing really is working apart from the hit outs. Everything else is falling apart, and I don't know, is it a question of which problem do you try and fix first? You've got a to-do list of 25 things, which one do you address first, and you can't decide, so you don't do anything. Nothing was going right. Nothing is going right. The players are bereft of ideas, bereft of confidence, and we'll get to changes, but how do you force them to get confidence, stupid? You don't, if you drop them, that's not going to help their confidence. But if you keep playing them and they play shit house and we get beaten by Adelaide and that's a 4th straight loss and we're out of the 8, how do they get confident doing that? We'll get on to changes, but I'm pretty disappointed that there still doesn't seem to be any change. There's a few guys that could go back and work on their game, and it's just we're putting out the same guys, we're tinkering around the edges, and we're getting the same results.
Keys, I know it's easy from the cheap seats to say, it's simple, man up their
fun
spare,
too.
or very fun, or use the corridor more, or whatever the solution might be. But I mean, I'm sitting there, I see a man up the spare, it goes swimmingly, and then suddenly we drop off back to having a spare in our defence. That's when North sort of started to turn it, get back on top. What's the structural change, number one, that you would like to see? If you could just snap your fingers and have one change happen, is it a matter of trying to be more aggressive through the middle, come what may? Maybe that'll burn you as well, but is it a matter of sticking to that? Is it a matter of doing plan A better? Or what's the change that you want to see, or at least you think might help close this gap a bit?
I'd like to see us play on quicker and move into the corridor. And I think some of our guys, there was a number of times on Monday night where I watched Gaff run to get a ball and get a cheap posse running onto his right foot.
Yeah.
And there was a couple of times I just, why? Just the kick was sideways or backwards to Gaff, and then he got caught on his right foot. And I was like, why would Gaff call for it? Why would the guy go there? And another thing that I know Redden was out of the side, and we really missed Redden on Monday night, I thought. But Gaff was regularly in the centre square. I don't know why. He's not inside mid. We've got Yo, Shuey, Kelly, and Sheed. Those guys should be taking the centre square bounces, not Gaff.
Sheed right now, I'm just done with Sheed, and I think we got Matt in the comments saying the same. Sheed's had a really bad spell.
Sheed's hanging on to his spot in the side by a thread, I would have thought. I mean,
with those credits.
He's just not. He looks lazy. He just jogs after. He tails his man. But that said, Gaff should be on the wing,
Mm.
and that's where it should stay. It shouldn't be anywhere else on the ground. Just run and link up. But we've got to be more daring with ball use. I think as supporters, if you see a guy at halfback turn the ball over, kicking the ball into the corridor, I think you wear that. What you don't wear is, and I'm not picking on the guy, but Rotham fucking up a 15-metre sideways kick that turns over and ends up in a goal. And it's like, just why? I mean, go if you're taking a risk and the ball turns over, you wear it. But if you're trying a kick that has no risk and you fuck it up and you turn it over, then that's a problem. That's a skill problem. It's a confidence problem. It's a game plan issue. So, and I would have thought that most supporters, if you go and try an attacking kick on a 45 to a guy running, and it turns over, okay, well, that happens. But take territory. We're not taking territory with our kicks. And we've got guys who can catch the footy. So, if you're kicking it to a contest in the centre, surely that's better than kicking it backwards 40 metres and watching a side set up. And what's worse is sides know that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, that's the issue. Yeah, 100%. As I said, look, I'm not averse to the kick mark game, so you got to play the conditions. Conditions were shocking. Dial it back a bit, simplify it a bit. Don't go for all these high possession games because eventually you're going to stuff one of them up. But with that said, look, the crowd always gets frustrated to a degree, Migs, when you see a big switch or like a slower build-up switch I'm talking about, not a big raking switch out to the wing. But the crowd always gets a bit shitty when they go backwards, when they go sideways, all this sort of stuff. 30,000 people there on Monday, by far the lowest crowd we've had since we've been able to have big proper crowds again. And the noise was pretty quiet at most of the night. Yeah. The crowd had no patience whatsoever for the switch at all, which is not on them. It's on the boys. I'm not knocking the crowd, but what I'm saying is the most notable volume you were getting was when you saw the crowd see the boys turn their shoulders, we're going back, we're going to set it up. Everyone knew it was the wrong night for it and all of this, and they were making their voices heard. So obviously the supporter base is on the same page as well. Let's circle back to that frustration point as well while we're talking about, where their heads are at. Do they need to be more daring? Is it a personnel issue? Well, Kim did ask about, what do we reckon the relationship's like? Do you read anything into that McGovern-Yeo incident, whatever you want to call it? Any issues that potentially maybe the boys are dropping their heads or not going in hard enough for their teammates? Where do you think personally the guys are at the moment?
Yeah, and seen some rumours about discontent and so on, and I've seen some various theories behind it. One theory I thought was really interesting, there's absolutely nothing to it that I can guess, is that people are upset that Rioli's back in the side because back at the club because his return has coincided with this fall. That's a pretty good example, I think, of correlation, not equaling causation. The body language was terrible. I was surprised by that comeback in the fourth quarter because I thought when they walked out for the start of that quarter, I thought just there's so many slumped shoulders. Such poor body language from basically the whole 18 on the field. I saw Kennedy give Rotham a serve at one stage, and he's not usually like that at all. So
pick it up, get it over my head, give me a chance.
Yeah. So there's just there should be a lot of soul searching going on, I think, there because I don't know. Do they need? Someone said in the comments, someone called collective minds. We need a camp. It's a shame there's no buy or something coming up because it does seem like perfect time for a players only meeting or a bit of a mini camp and a bit of truth telling and soul searching because as you said off the top, this is as bad as it's been since at least since Semmo's come on board, and there's just so much going wrong, and the playing group is going to have to take some hard truths and take some ownership of it.
Moss here saying the positive, though, is at least Yeo and Kennedy giving those serves show some of them at least give a shit. And that sort of goes back into the Nic Nat thing. Taking it out of the ruck and he turned it over a few times, but that's sort of what Keys was talking about. I don't give a shit. If you die making something happen, or at least attempting to make something happen, don't just go down with a whimper. Like, if you're going to try something, try it. No issue there. Keys, I'll let you sum things up now. Anything further on the North game before we move on and just basically try and burn the tape for the third week in a row?
No, I just did a run through today because I couldn't quite remember our losing streaks. We've lost 4 in a row under Simpson once.
Oh, was that 2014?
2014, rounds 4 to 7. That's it. That's the only time under Simpson we lost 4 in a row. You've got to go back to 2010 for the next time before that we lost 4 in a row. We've lost 3 in a row as against Simpson. 1, 2.
The hub, definitely.
This is the 5th time we lost 3 in a row.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, one of those times was back in 2014. That was in a patch. We won 1 win from 8 games in the first half of 2014. And Simpson was the first coach. Other than that, you've got 2017. We did it once. Once in 2018, which is in the middle of rounds when we had a lot of injuries around just after the bye.
Yeah.
And then the hub last year. That's it.
Did you work out the margins, the combined margins in those games?
In those, the 4 in a row, 75, 14, 3 and 19.
Oh, he did. Jesus.
8, 38, 44, 61, 8, 3.
8, 3, 14. Normal margins for a normal game of
and
footy.
even in the hub, 44, 30, 48. And then there was another one, 15, 28, 10. They're all, they weren't blowouts like we had. I don't know the ladder position of the sides we lost to, so I didn't go that deep.
What are we looking at now? 10 goals, 100, and then 10 points at home to the worst club in footy.
Yeah. So our 2 worst losses under Simpson have been this season now. Like I said, it's the worst run of 3 games that we've had, and we're staring down the barrel now of losing the 4th in a row. And it's our second worst. Only 2014 we were 7 and 9. So and we're 8 and 8, and in 2017 we're 9 and 7. Every other year we've had double digits by after 16 games. So we're up against it. It's dire. And I think, and this is the unfortunate thing, I think what we're going through now, as a supporter, this is the worst period to be a supporter, because we've had our success. We've still got, the Premiership heroes, they're still there. For the most part, most of them are a shadow of how they played in 2018. So they're all on the decline. The team's on the decline. It's going to come, but now what we don't know is exactly why, because you think the team should be playing better than what they are. The cliff's here. We're falling off it, and now we don't know how big the trough's going to be. And I reckon this is, like I said, this is worse than when you're actually down the bottom, because when you're down there, you're kind of like, oh, well, things can only get better from here. But
and you're playing the kids, you're looking at the future.
You look at the future and just go, well, it's going to get worse. And I reckon this is the thing. We'll probably get to this when we get to selections, but I think it's a struggle for the match committee, because you've got players. We had, I think by my count, 12 premiership players out there on Monday night.
Yep.
Plus Gaff, Shepherd, and Nat Nui. So
plus Kelly.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Plus Kelly.
Plus Kelly. Yeah. So I think it's really easy for us from the cheap seats to pick on the match committee and say, look, you're playing on past successes and things like that. But I reckon as a match committee, you know what those guys were capable of, and I reckon it's hard to let it go. To go, well, if you're looking at, say, do you play Sheed or do you bring in O'Neill as an example?
Yeah.
You're probably going to back Sheed in because you know Sheed's best is better than O'Neill's best. But it's like, well, Sheed's not playing at his best, and maybe we need to give O'Neill a chance because what O'Neill can provide now is maybe as much as what Sheed can provide, or at least we get to expose him and we're better for the future. So I think it's a really difficult situation for the match committee to be in because they're trying to work out which guys are past it and which guys can maybe recapture their bad form and whether they're going to snap out of it. So it looks like we're going to back the guys in for another week to snap out of it.
Good luck.
We'll see. Yeah, and then it's on the players.
We've got a question here from Moss. Do you think Shuey should be captain going forward next year? We might talk about leadership and future prospects, things like that, either a little bit later on the show or potentially next week. God forbid if we actually, drop fourth game in a row and all this sort of business. It's sort of in that spot. Is this 2017? Where you just need to, I say just, but expose so the kids to a bit more action, a few debutants, throw a few names in there like that. Maybe that'll rejuvenate things, or is it more of like a 08, 09, where
2013?
Exactly. Yeah, all that, bit of a coach killer, and there's a bit of a trough coming up. We'll wait and see. I think we've stuck around in the shadows for a little bit, long enough now. It's all been a bit doom and gloom. So let's get some energy back into it. Let's talk positive. If you're listening to us, or if you're watching us live, I should say, look, tag your mates, have your say in this next part, because we're talking about Nic Naitanui. Let's celebrate the great man, separate to what's happening at the club right now. 200th game coming up on the weekend. Nic Naitanui. So, Migs, Nic Nat, club legend, plays his 200th. He arrived at the club with a remarkable amount of pressure for a young man because he was sort of the new face of the team, a young team, a team not dissimilar to now. They had the premiership guys kind of go off the cliff a bit, had to rebuild. And straight away, he's given the number 9 jumper. Obviously, we know the history there. I think it was his second game against Hawthorn, where he's basically won the game off his own boot in the last quarter. He's got the iconic look. So you're looking at this, fantastic kid, great prospect. His marketing material coming out, every bloody hole that he's got, if that's what we're allowed to say. And, he's basically somehow elevated on that. He came in with all the pressure in the world, stays a really humble bloke. He's delivered. He's changed his game style from the highlight reel to just the week in, week out soldier. Nic Naitanui, 200 games. Take it away. What's your take on the great man? Yeah,
and probably a couple of years ago, wouldn't have looked like he'd get to 200 games with having a bloke his size suffering a second recon. But he's come back from that and taken his game to another level. So he's been one real shining light in this pretty dismal season. He's doing his best to lead from the front. We probably had 2 of our best wins when he was acting captain. Going back to whoever's question it was, Mossy's question about should Shuey be captain going forward, you'd almost be arguing to have Nic Nat captain for the rest of the year because proven winner. But he's
worked at one point.
You hear him speak and he's just so humble and he has every reason not to be, but he is. And he's performing at a great level. And he's one thing that we can really hang our hat on this year.
Keys, this is a guy, like I said, came into the league with all the pressure. The humbleness is amazing. He sticks out everywhere he goes. He hasn't had a second off since he was 18 or however long. There's cameras following to him in America when he goes over there for surgery. Still a really grounded bloke, fantastic guy. You look at the production this year, I think he's in the top 5 for clearances, not for ruckman, but full stop. One of the best 5 clearance players in footy. He's getting 20 possessions on the regular now, which he hasn't done for a couple of years. hit outs, obviously one of the best tap ruckmen in footy. His hit out numbers are always at the very top of the top. I think he's second or third in hit outs this year.
So he's second behind Gorn.
There you go. So we're still getting production from him, but take us through perhaps some of your favourite Nic Nat highlights over the years. We might not see as many now, but back in the early days, he was really giving us a lot.
I think he's the heart and soul of the club.
Spiritual leader.
And I think you just don't. I remember when I was living up in Broome, and the Eagles came up. They had a footy camp, and it was around 2010 thereabouts. All the kids, they just flocked to Nic Nat. None of the other players, no one gave a shit about those. And that's him wherever he goes. He goes. I mean, he's 6 foot freaking 10. He goes to a nightclub and everyone can see him. And he's not. He's never. There's not been one thing where it's come out where it's been any bit of controversy or anything like that. I've spoken to blokes that have met him when he's been out, and he's up for a chat. He's polite. He talks to people. He doesn't get toey with them. Just a great bloke. I reckon that first game, I was watching it, and the thing that I still laugh about was he kicked 3 goals, and it would have been Clarkson decided you had to stop it, and he sent Campbell Brown to go down and try and rough him up, and you could see Campbell Brown just going, "What the fuck am I supposed to go? How am I supposed to intimidate this bloke?" But he tried, and there was that. I remember he took a huge hanger against Geelong in 2015, I think, in the Indigenous jumper. I was there for that game. That was great.
On top of Cal Sinclair, if you don't mind, he's about 400 centimetres in the air.
He's had the goal after siren against North, the goal in the last seconds against GWS. Yep. But I think that the enduring memory of him once he's finished up will be his tap work. The way he can leap at a centre bounce and knock it wherever he feels like and change his mind mid-air and hit a midfielder at pace on the tip and break him forward. It's just it's poetry when it comes off, and like you said, he's had to change because he's had that real super leap. He doesn't really have that anymore now, but he's relying more on his smarts. But 200 games. He's come back from a second knee, Rico. He's got All Australian last year. He's definitely in the conversation this year for All Australian. I don't know that. I mean, Gorn's probably got one spot sewn up, and then it's a matter of, can he get a second spot ahead of maybe Hickey or Grundy, or the Freo types are squawking about Darcy, but fuck that, he's not good enough. He's the only player in our team this year that's even in the conversation for All Australian.
Yeah. And walk into the best and fairest again.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the good thing is, because he's changed his game, he can still play like this for possibly another 2 or 3 years. I hope he can, because I love watching him out there. I love seeing him in the 9. Yep, I agree. It will be a fast, but you never know with these All-Australian fuckheads. I love the guy. He's been my favourite player to watch for basically since that Hawthorn game.
Yeah. I mean, that Hawthorn game, you got a 200 whatever centimetre kid. As you say, they're sending physical pressure to him. They're putting a proper defender on him. He took a running bounce in the pouring rain that skidded away from him, and he still burned off his opponent. Miggs, that first knee injury was his game number 146, career game 146. He missed all of 2017. played phenomenal in 2018. Absolutely amazing. Obviously, it's a travesty that he didn't get the flag. Did the knee, came back for a couple of games at the end of 2019, but essentially he's missed 2 full seasons. But outside of that, you know, he's actually been remarkably healthy for the 3 seasons that he played otherwise. Just, I mean, week in, week out, you know what you're going to get from him.
Early 2012, 13, somewhere around there. He missed a fair bit of footy. Yeah.
Have a bit of OP at one stage or something.
But he's just gotten on with it, you know, and he's taken his game to a more consistent level, certainly. But as Keys said, just changing that game style, you know, he's still just a beast week in, week out. Your favourite Nic Nat memory, Miguel?
Keys, I had sort of 3 that I was mulling around, and Keys, I think, named all of them. It was the mark over Sinclair and Blitzarves, which was, I was about a block away from that. Nice. The North mark, I was pretty close to that one too.
Very nice.
And the GWS winning goal, I was probably close to the New Blokes because I was at the ground down the other end. But yeah, so I've been pretty lucky with that. Clearly, I'm a good luck charm for Nic Nat, or I just go to a lot of footy. They're probably my favourite memories on the field. Off the field, I don't know whether it was his first or second knee recon, but he got on Twitter and said basically thank you to all the support. If you want to financially support me, don't do that. Support this. He had some girl he knew that was in Princess Margaret with some terrible disease, and he said, if you want to do something for me, send this girl some money. So that just shows the character of the bloke, I think.
Ripping bloke.
Yeah.
Fantastic. He embodies the club in that sort of, spiritual leader or whatever you want to call it. He is the heart and soul. I know he's very, very popular. I know that grinds opposition fans a little bit, but the crowd do genuinely just light up whenever he goes near it because something special is probably going to happen. And, maybe it doesn't take enough marks, Keys, but yeah, fantastic.
I was just fantastic. Thinking, as listening to you guys talking, one of the things I reckon sums up Nic Nat was him giving Riley O'Brien that phone after the game last year. O'Brien made a mistake, whether he did it
on cue,
let it go deliberately or whatever. Nat Nui, publicly, he sort of laughed it off, and then you show it in that documentary. It was sort of like it stung him a little bit, and privately he was saying, "I'm going to bash this bloke, and I'm going to show him." He went to war with the guy after the game, shakes his hand, gives him a phone, has a laugh. That's the guy he is. It wasn't contrived or anything like that. Obviously, he planned it. But it was just a really good moment in the game, that you could go to war with a bloke. And they were crashing into each other that game. They were going at it pretty hard.
Yeah.
At the end of it, he pats the bloke on the bloke, has a laugh with him, and wishes him all the best. And that's it. You don't hear from him about it. You don't hear from him about it anymore. That's it. It's done.
Fantastic player, a ripping bloke as well. Given all the pressure and the spotlight on him, he could have gone a completely different way, and you might not have blamed him. But he's still super humble. You think about that who are you going to tell your kids about, or who are you going to be able to say, "Oh, I saw this guy play," or whatever. And for as good as Judd, fantastic. Cousins, of course, you have to talk about, and these sorts of guys. Kennedy's remarkable. We've been lucky to see him play. Even Lacroix at his best is maybe someone you might be like, "Yep, that's somebody that you want to tell your kids about or brag that you got to see him play." But I think Nic Nat on that scale is probably pretty unparalleled. So fantastic to see him play game 200. Great to see him hopefully kick on for a few more years as well. And you'd say one hand on the BNF medal already. Hopefully we can get him a couple of hands on a Premiership Cup as well before he wraps things up. Let's move on to heroes and villains, guys. Not a lot of heroes this week, but we'll get through it if we can. The North Melbourne chat, we sort of wallowed around a bit, so it's running a bit long. Let's smash through this one. Keys, as customary, you can lead us off for villains. Aside from the entire West Coast Eagles playing squad, who pissed you off this week?
It's fucking removalists in Victoria from New South Wales.
I hadn't even considered that. Yeah.
Fuck them. Just, we're trying to get out of this. We're trying to get things sorted out. and these fuckers they're on the verge of bringing the comp down. So they're on my shit list. I'm looking at Chris Scott doing a press conference. I just hate him. He's just a pain in the ass. So he's on the shit list just because he's on my telly at the minute. I'm pretty shy for Villains this week because I was pissed off with our All Blacks. The Vic footy shows, all the Fox ones, you know when the Eagles are losing because they're all over them.
Yeah.
You know, we win a couple of games and just fucking crickets, and as soon as we lose, I mean, look, it's warranted. You know, we're playing shit, and so the criticism's fair. And I don't think there's any reason why we shouldn't have the microscope put on us because we deserve it. But you know, it just shows how poor it is when you know, when we went, there's no balance in the coverage.
There's a strong.
Yeah, I called out Gladys last week for just being too slow.
Yeah, Infected Virus says that Gladys is his or her villain of the week. Yep.
Yeah.
Strong username to content ratio there.
Infected Virus, g'day Gladys. Moss's villain is the credits in general. Stuff the credits, probably stuff the bank as well. Don't like the credits in the bank.
Yeah, so this week for once I'm pretty shallow on villains without getting political or anything like that.
Yeah.
But,
well,
yeah,
also
the removalists for me.
Yeah, good, very good. Migs, anything that can top that?
The only other one I had was Jaden Stevenson for
please,
ripping us a new one, and then
fucking stupid pill.
Yeah,
he's
going
a moron.
on Twitter or Instagram or whatever and saying, "Oh yeah, I think COVID's being overblown." Stupid fucking idiot.
Now, if it wasn't for the media, there wouldn't be COVID. Well,
yeah,
I don't know that that's how it works there, Jaden. But
can the AFL take his possessions and his goals off North Melbourne for that? That might actually give us
sure he
points.
He might have had a punt on himself, possessions over under. That's why it might have been
retrospective suspension, I reckon.
Yeah, good. I reckon Jaden Stevenson's got it. And by got it, I mean villain of the week, not got COVID. Of course, COVID doesn't exist. It's just the media beat up. But Jaden Stevenson, villain of the week. The Eagles boys lucky to escape the blowtorch again this week. Heroes. I mean, are there any heroes? Simo showed up to his bloody Ask Simo. That's sort of heroic because I don't know
actually,
what he expected to get.
That was going to be my other villain was Goss for picking the easiest fucking questions for him in that segment.
Softballs was I don't even watch it anymore, but softballs was it? Good. Very good.
A bunch of Dorothy Dixes.
Yeah. Very good. Heroes. Anybody done anything properly heroic this week?
Ash Barty.
Ash Barty, hero of the week, just like that.
Yeah.
I had a couple of others. Connor West for getting his debut.
Very nice.
And we'll get to that. And Mark Hutchings he's in the squad. I don't know if he'll play, but doing his thing week by week in the waffle. Had 30 and 3, so good for him, showing the senior boys how it's done.
And you have 30 and 3. Goodness me. Suller as well. So get him in, Get him in this week, Eagles. You need a defensive
midfielder. We need him to tag Zorko or something, don't we?
Dangerfield and Selwood, he suggested, who of course played tonight. Keys?
Trevor Gleeson's the other one.
Very good. Very good. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, 8 years at the Wildcats, 5 championships. I mean, Wildcats were already a pretty successful organisation before he came. Under his watch, he took them another level. So, I think you probably know this better than me, Badge, but I'm pretty sure I read during the week he's got 5 championships at the Wildcats. There's no other club in the NBL has got more than 4.
So next best is 4 in total.
Yeah. He's been brilliant, and the Wildcats are going to miss him. And good on him for he's got an opportunity to go to the NBA and coach. So I hope he does really well, and he'll be And one of the things I can't remember where I heard it. It might have been one of the players talking about him. But the thing he was able to do was get the players playing for each other, and the culture of the Wildcats.
Oh.
I just kind
Stuff
of
Toronto.
wish
We should have poached him.
that's what I was going to say. I just wish before he flies out, maybe hope we can get him in the club and talk to players about the value of playing for each other and a team first ethos, because that's exactly what the Wildcats have been all about for certainly for his 8 years at the club. So he was the other one that I had for a hero of the week.
Gleeson and Barty, are we divvying up the honours there? Heroes of the week?
Yeah, I think first Wimbledon title for a woman in 40 years for an Australian woman. You kind of hard. And just a great person to boot, apart from...
Richmond fan, though.
Yeah. Super bad character flaw. Aside from that, just everything you want from a sporting champion.
So I think we better give it just to Ash Barty straight up, because that's a very impressive impressive effort all over. So there you go, Ash Barty, our hero of the week. Right, moving on, guys. It is round 18. The West Coast Eagles play the Adelaide Crows. What time have we got? 2:10, I think, back on a normal time slot on Sunday. It's at Adelaide Oval, Migs. We've actually been able to fly out and, well, fingers crossed, be able to come back in. Now, the squad announcement that was the one we were watching. And Semmo, a bit of a blunder earlier in the week, or certainly from the perspective of myself and a lot of posters on the Eagles board, pretty much came out and said, no, we're not having any big names go out. This person's not getting dropped. That person's not getting dropped. As it stands currently, keeping in mind Sunday squads, extended squads, all of that, the outs are both in force. We've got Tom Barrass and Brendan Archie both missing with injuries. Barrass in particular, definitely one to watch if the Eagles figure things out, get back on a bit of a roll. The ins, we have both Edwards boys. We've got Xavier O'Neill. We've got Bailey Williams, Mark Hutchings, as you mentioned, and Connor West making his debut. Nice to see Connor West locked in as one of those two inclusions. Beyond that, Migs, it's a bit of a strange one to say, no, there's not going to be any big names going out. Seems to be only the two changes that I can see. What do you think we're going to do on Sunday?
What do I think we're going to do? It depends a bit. There's a couple of injury clouds around Kelly and Yo, and there's a lot of potential replacements in the midfield that have been named on that extended bench. So we could see any of Luke Edwards, Xavier O'Neill, even potentially Hutchings coming in. Bailey Williams on the bench is an interesting one because I had him in my changes, but I had either Darling getting a spell, which obviously isn't going to happen, or Kennedy getting a sort of a managed rest, which he wouldn't be one of the senior players that you're saying stuff his credits in the bank, he should be getting a spell. His would be a genuine rest, but both of those guys named on field, basically anyone who you'd think he's a potential scapegoat, or he's someone that can go back to the waffle and try and get some form and confidence back. They're all named on the field. So the guys on the extended bench are the usual suspects. Nelson's there, Rotham I think's there. So if there are further changes, they're going to be little tinkering around the edges. It's not going to be the big statement change that we've been calling for. I said leaving the ground on Monday. If there's one silver lining to come out of this, it'll be that we'll finally see the change that we've been clamouring for, and we haven't seen it at the selection table. So whether we see it when the players line up or with some of the game plan changes or something, but certainly didn't come at selection. It doesn't look like. If there's another change, it'll be just one of the usual ones we're used to seeing week in, week out. The guys that are sort of the guys with the credits in the bank that are saving them are going to get another week at least. And if they don't get dropped after that North Melbourne game, God knows when they will be.
When will they? Exactly right. We got some comments here coming through about Dom Sheed maybe taking a spell. I agree with that, but I don't think it'll happen. If it were up to me, it might have happened. But anyway, Keys, we'll see Harry Edwards for Barrass. We'll see Connor West coming in for a debut. Hopefully adds a little bit of grunt and a bit of tackling because God knows we need it. 18th in the league for tackles as usual. beyond that, as Mick's pointed out, it doesn't look like there's going to be anything sweeping. Foley's not on the extended bench, which bothers me. Luke Edwards.
He's also
is there a
Foley's
way to
not
get him
named in the
involved?
waffle either, so I don't know if he's injured.
Oh, he's got the Jared Brander memorial injury where he's
Yeah.
not in the waffle, he's not on the injury report, and he's not in the league side, so that's good. But yeah, Keys, look, changes seemingly are going to be minimal from a personnel point of view. As we touched on at the top, I'd rather go down swinging and, maybe playing some youth, and you can cop a mistake from a kid who's trying to play aggressively, but nonetheless, it won't be personnel, it has to be mindset. So what are you expecting to see from the boys on Sunday? Are they going to come out pissed off, or is it just business as usual for West Coast?
Don't know. Just want to touch on, I think Infected Virus had the note about not being ruthless like Goodwin or Bevo. Now, as much as I agree with him in that Simpson's not particularly ruthless, I don't know that I would be looking at Goodwin and Bevo as particularly good examples to follow. I mean, Bevo won a flag in 2016, and there's been chopping and changing his side around ever since. And I reckon this year's the first year where it's actually paid any dividends. I mean, he missed finals a couple of years. So, yeah, I reckon sometimes Bevo outsmarts himself when he takes guys. I reckon he changes the side around too much. And, Goodwin at Melbourne, I think Melbourne have been blessed this year with a pretty thin injury list. So he's maybe been able to have that opportunity. As for the changes, I think there's probably three names that seem to be coming up. Four names that come up pretty regularly. And that's McGovern, Darling, Cripps, and Sheed.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to turn around and say, yeah.
Gaff can't win.
But it's probably those four are the ones that, from what I've read, have probably been the most common. Garvey was going to get dropped, probably got saved by Barrass's injury. If Barrass doesn't get injured, I still probably think Gov keeps his spot anyway, but with Barrass going out, you can't drop McGovern. Darling, yep, I reckon he could have done with a spell, and I could have
absolutely.
I would have liked to see Williams come in for Darling because Darling's given nothing.
Okay.
Sheed, I would have brought West in for Sheed. I don't really think that you could do that. And Cripps has got to be on thin ice. He's been poor. He wasn't great last year, and I don't think he's been good this year. Now,
is it that thing if you don't want to play mids out of position though? Like who's behind Cripps from a small forward perspective? That's maybe his saving.
Cripps spent a lot of time on the wing on Monday night.
Yeah, good point.
I reckon over half the centre bounce downs, he was starting on the wing. So if you're playing Cripps on the wing, bring O'Neill in on the wing. You know, Cripps is not playing half forward anyway. I think as much as you like to see some changes and you do it, it's come up now. I think over the last 3 weeks we've made something like 15 or 16 changes. The changes have been 5 or 6 each week for the last 3 weeks. As much as some of them been forced, some of them been shuffling deck chairs on the Titanic. From what the snippets of what I heard from Simpson this week, I reckon he's trying to get a bit of continuity, and I think he's wondering whether or not the changes have been too disruptive. Whether that's right or not, I don't know. But at some point, I said a little bit earlier, maybe he looks like he's going to back the guys in and give them a chance to redeem themselves. At some point, you've got to turn around and call it and go, these guys have run.
Yeah.
And I think they've run out of credits, and I think they've gone in. They're borrowing now. they've, they're like, Venezuela. They're in fucking, they're in debt.
Going to need a government bailout.
And dig up stupid. They've got to. So it's on. Look, Simpson's going to back the players in. Go for it. But he's got the players now. If they don't respond this week, then I'm going to start to believe there's an issue between Simpson and the players, and that you then got to talk about whether or not Simmo's lost the player group. Because if he's going to back them in after, what we said is probably their worst 3-week period, certainly under Simpson as coach, if he's going to back him in again and they let him down again, where do you go then?
Migs, we've played the Crows once already this year. Now, we played him without Tex for whatever that matters. He started the year on fire. He sort of tailed off a bit, but he's found something that I thought he'd lost. He's certainly had his best year for some time now. He's going to be back in, but you look at the players that played well on that day, and it's a lot of midfield presence. It's Tim Kelly with 31. It's Gaff with 30. Witherden had 30 himself, but obviously he won't be available. Redden with the 26. Cripps 25 might have been one of his better games for the year. She 23. So the mids found the footy a fair bit. Is that the battle that we need to watch? Is it more about seeing the mentality, seeing if they come out pissed off, ready to fight for 4 quarters more specifically? Like, what would you like to see on the weekend? Because they need to win, plain and simple. They need to win. So let's throw that out already. What do you want to see, from the boys? Is it winning the footy first? Is it hitting hard? What's the thing that you'd most like?
Probably the greater work rate and greater spread. Spreading from the contest, actually running to provide an option and not the running around the back. Actually spreading, running when your opponents have got the ball, actually shutting them down, not just plodding alongside them, giving them the corridor. That defensive effort when we haven't got the ball is what I really want to see. We sort of, I suppose, we won the clearances, even though we papered over the cracks a little by Nat Nui dominating and doing it himself. But it was as soon as the ball left that clearance is when we fell down. So I think that's where the effort needs to be, and particularly when Adelaide have got the ball. I want to see more. Someone's just commented, I really want to see more corralling. No, that's about the one thing I don't want to see more of.
Thanks, Rod. Cheers for that.
That's, you just want to see the effort and the work rate, and looking like they give a shit, I suppose.
They give a shit, exactly. Keys, you touched on it. I actually thought the fight in the first quarter and bits of the second, until that sort of niggling under the skin sort of stuff started coming in. But the fight in the first quarter I thought was good. Barras laid a big hit. The tackling seemed to be up. The intent seemed to be up. Looking at the numbers when we last played the Crows, we beat them in clearances. We beat them in tackles. It's not a club that wins a lot of games, on the tackle count. So they've shown they can do it against this group. We got Shuey back in since then. We've got Yo. No Redden, sure, but we've still got Kelly. We've still got Sheed, fingers crossed, from a health perspective, I should say, as it relates to those guys. Is the battle in the middle going to determine the game? Is it just, again, same as Migs, you just want to see boys give a shit?
Yeah, it's really hard. From the stands, it's hard to know. I mean, I'm sure if you ask the players, they'd say they did give a shit. But
but
I want to see some dare. Just, take some risks. And, I said earlier, take a risk and it doesn't pay off, well, then I'll wear that. But then have the work rate that if you do take a risk and you turn the ball over, then you work your ass off to get back and cover and go, right, okay, we've turned it over, let's get back, let's protect, and this is, it was the one thing, when I went to the Richmond-Essendon game, that one of the things that struck me in that game, and they're a bad team too, because as bad as we're going, Richmond aren't doing much. They're doing about as well as we are.
Yeah.
The thing that struck me in the when Richmond played Essendon was how regularly they would turn the ball over, but when they did, they would get back and they'd position themselves to cover defensively for it, and they'd work their ass off. And I think that's what all the good sides are doing. You know, they'll take a risk, and sometimes it'll turn over. But when it does turn over, they don't just turn out, fuck it. Oh well, they're back. They're harassing the guy that has got the footy. They're putting pressure on the guys who are in line to receive it. They're getting back in position so that, you know, the attack. I mean, it doesn't work all the time, and good sides still get scored against. But they'll make sides work their ass off to score against them, and that's what we've got to do. We've got to work when we don't have the footy, and we've got to show dare when we have it.
Moss here in the comments saying that he wants to see the boys get around each other and celebrate the little wins, and I think that's a really interesting point because we're feeling flat. The club's obviously aware of the pressure. Nizzy's sending emails about it, and Semmo's getting grilled a little bit more in the media week on week. Migs, they're not stupid. They know where we're at. You've got the Yo McGovern situation, all that sort of stuff. I reckon next week we name the Chris Marston Memorial Teammate of the Week because they need a circuit breaker. They need somebody to just lift the boys up and get around each other. Chief Celebration Officer, you know. I'd like to see a little bit more positivity coming through the camp because maybe it's a simple fix. It's a naive thing to say, you know, you just laugh it off and feel better and everything will fall into place. But shit, try something because, you know, as I keep saying, they need to break this circuit somehow.
Yeah, a bit of that, and also not getting too down and dragging your bottom lip along the ground if an umpire's call goes against you, or a teammate gives up a goal, or the opposition get a couple of goals in a row. Have the mental fortitude to shake it off and say, right, we'll get the next one.
You look at the Crows, not a high-scoring team, not a team that gets a lot of the footy in terms of their disposal numbers. They mark the footy less than anybody in the league as well. They don't tackle all that much.
Lowest score in their history last week.
21, yeah, goodness me. They're coming off. Here we go. How's this? 3 losses in a row for us, 3 losses in a row for them. Somebody might want to tip a draw or something. But yeah, look, I mean,
surprised this wasn't the Friday night game.
They're 1-5 in their last 6 games. They are, goodness me, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So what does that make them? 2-10 in their last 12. This is not a club that's flying. This is not a club that's up and about. They're giving up scores. They're not scoring a lot, Keys. I mean, we can get into tips if you want, or we can discuss sort of what we're expecting at either end of the field. But I'm kind of sick of talking structurally about the Eagles because it's not going to change until Semmo changes it. We can't change it for him. So, you know, what are you expecting to see from the Crows, and how does that influence your tip?
I've got no idea what to expect from the Crows. I noticed Fogarty's been named in the side in the changes, which means he'll probably kick 5 or 6 goals against us because he seems to like playing against us for whatever reason.
Good stuff.
Which is a pain in the ass. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think, to be honest, it doesn't matter. The Crows will try. You expect that, and it shouldn't matter. It shouldn't have mattered last week that North Melbourne tried. We're a better side. If we try, we win. If we play somewhere even approximating our best, we win this game. But if we don't, we'll lose, and it's on us. It's got nothing to do with what Adelaide do. It's all about what we do. And if we don't have the right mindset going in, we'll get rolled again. 2 things. One thing I like today is the players seemed, the little video they did about Connor West being named.
Yep.
There seemed to be a pretty genuine happiness for Connor amongst the playing group that he got named. They all sort of got around him and everything like that. So, maybe something as small as a player making his debut can be enough to spark the players. They should be wanting to play for Nic Nat's 200th.
Yep, absolutely.
And you mentioned that press release from Trevor Nisbet. When was the last time you remember Nisbet doing a press release that had anything to do with on field.
Yeah. It wasn't just please give us money.
Yeah.
His press releases, anything he comes is usually something to do with off field matters, and got nothing to do with on field. So you've got to think that he's pissed, and I'm sure he was, and I reckon he's made it known. So it'll be interesting to see what impact that has, because I cannot remember when I've seen Nisbet comment about, I'm not like unprovoked. I mean, I'm sure there's been times where he's been doing a radio interview and he's been asked a question about how they're going on field and he's responded, but unprompted to come out and sort of talk about how the club's faring on field, that's really unusual, and it shows, if nothing else, the club are aware of the pressure that's coming, and I reckon just going through that Ask Semmo segment, there was a fair bit you could see the way Simpson was well aware that there's a fair bit of negative feeling amongst the fan base, and rightly so.
Migs, you can lead us off with the tipping. Do the Eagles break this horror run that they're on, or do the Crows snap their 3-game losing streak? What's going to happen on Sunday? Who's going to win, by how much, and which Eagle is going to impress us the most?
Look, I hope we turn up, but I don't have the confidence to pick us to beat any AFL team at the moment. Unfortunately, that's just where I am. So I'm going to pick Adelaide by 15 points, and our best to be. Probably can't pick Nic Nat, can I?
Can if you want.
Can I pick Connor West? Connor West to come in and have a rising star debut, even though he's probably too old to be eligible.
Love that. Beautiful stuff. Keys, do the Eagles get the W on the weekend, and who impresses us either way?
Fuck it. Eagles by 24. I mean, I picked us by 84 last week. We didn't even score 84, little I win by that. So 24, I reckon. Best on ground. Fat Guts McGovern. Why not?
There you go. Beautiful stuff.
Well, Gov.
Yeah, I want to. Actually, he's one. I really want to see something from him. I really want to see something from Gov. I think he owes us. I mean, he's on. According to that Herald Sun article, he's the second highest paid player in the comp, and I reckon since he got that contract, he's not been the player that he was before that contract. So, he's on good money. He needs to perform up to it. So, putting the wood on him, he's probably going to have to take Walker, because I think putting Edwards on Walker is, that's a pretty big ask on a guy in his 6th or 7th game or whatever it is. And even Edwards is going to had his hands full with Philthrop in the first game, and I think we ended up moving Allen onto him from memory, because we didn't. I don't think we had Gov or Brass in that game.
No.
So I think we're McGovern's going to have to take Walker, which means he's going to have to sacrifice his intercept game and be accountable one-on-one. So I'm going. That's a long way a lot of words to say Gov in 24, wasn't it?
Beautiful. Love it. G'day to Willie Rioli, of course, highest player in the AFL. Hutch going to get called up and get best on ground according to Infected Virus, and Moss doesn't mind that one either. Darling to find form again as well, coming through on the comments. Darling kicked 5 goals against the Crows, and I'm not one of... Darling cops flack from Eagles fans.
Did he do that in one quarter?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely he did, which was bizarre. Yeah, he's copped some flack over the
I'd rather
years.
see him kick 1 goal a quarter.
Agreed.
5 in 1.
Absolutely. I will say, I don't understand the flack. I understand where it comes from, but I don't think it's warranted. You know, he's not always as imposing as he could be, and he fades out of games sometimes. I get that. His best is phenomenal. I actually think, you know, sometimes people judge him harshly because his best is so good. I am now in the Jack Darling needs a spell camp. Over the last month, he's just simply not been good enough. He's not hitting the scoreboard. Threatened to do some nice link-up play a couple of weeks ago. I think it was against Sydney. Didn't amount to anything. So I wouldn't have had an issue if they dropped him, or if they do indeed drop him. If he plays, fuck it, why not? Jack Darling, best on ground. I cannot predict the Eagles to win the game. I just can't bring myself to do it. I'd normally, in this situation, do something cowardly, like say Adelaide by a point. But as we've seen, when we lose badly. So I'm going to say Adelaide by 40. I really hope I'm fucking wrong on that. I really hope I'm right that Jack Darling has a big game, because he needs it, we need it, and the boys just need to get back on that winners list. And they've climbed a spot already this week, having yet to play. Hopefully they can keep climbing and go a little bit better. Gents, I reckon we will leave it there. A bit of a long one this week, but there was a lot to unpack. Fantastic for Nic Nat to get to 200. I think that's the big headline I want out of this week, is that the boys managed to do it for him. Hopefully they can do it for young Connor West as well. Miggs, fantastic to see you back on the show, mate. It's been a tough week, but I think we've gotten through it so far. Hopefully round 18 can be a bit better.
Yeah, and another long wait for the Sunday game, unfortunately. But, hopefully it's worth the wait this time.
Keys, you're folding the club in your what do we got here? We got the Nail Ale, is it?
No nails in the coffin this week, I hope.
Love that. Keys, quick beer review from yourself. How does that one rate compared to last week's? Behind last week's. This one's a bit fruity. Bit fruity. The Stefan Arna is the winner thus far for the Keys beer power ranking, so we'll keep that one tracked. We're going to track the Chris Marston.
I'm going to put this outside so it rusts away, and I'm going to shove it up someone's ass next week.
The old rusty nail. Look at that. Keys, there's levels to this. Guys, keep your eye out. Chris Marston. Bloody, what do we call it? Commemorative teammate of the week, some bullshit like that.
And the week you retired.
Who's getting around the boys? Who's lifting the club? Guys, thank you very much for watching, as always, in the comments. Appreciate that. Nail Red Ale getting a little bit of a thumbs up here from Matt. He likes that version. So, Keys, maybe one for you to try next week. We'll talk to you next week, 8:30, Thursday. Same as always. Share the show, tag a mate, all that good stuff. Let us know what you like, what you don't like. And hopefully we're recapping an Eagles win next week. Jesus Christ, hopefully. We're recapping a win, please. Boys, please. We'll leave it there, guys. We'll talk to you next week. Until then, we will see you next time. Bye for now.
Bye.